I make the argument that Jessica Jones is a feminist show because of the ways in which it interacts with rape as a trauma, rather than incorporating rape as an isolated plot device that's just thrown into the story. Jessica Jones as a show engages in discourses around rape culture in a productive and potentially less triggering way because we don't actually see it. Rather than employing on-screen sexual assault, the show uses emotional abuse, post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, and the politics of consent as a vehicle for framing rape as an ongoing challenge in the lives of survivors, rather than it just being depicted as a singulated violation or violence towards someone. As a cancer survivor and a sexual assault survivor, I can attest to the fact that these are the kinds of traumas that become a daily navigational issue, and that can unfortunately lead to the kinds of addictive behavior that we see in Jones. And that, like living with cancer in remission, living with sexual assault trauma is an ongoing life process, and it's not just something that comes at you one time. In an interview originally posted in The Hollywood Reporter, executive producer of Jessica Jones, Melissa Rosenberg, commented on the way the show narrates rape. It's becoming ubiquitous. It's becoming lazy storytelling, and it's always about the impact that it has on the men around them. It's like, oh, his wife was raped and murdered, so he's going to go out and destroy the world. That's so often what it's about, just this kind of de rigueur storytelling to spice up the male character. She says it's damaging, it's hideous messaging, and so coming into this, the events have already happened, and this is really about the impact of rape on a person and about healing, survival, trauma, and facing demons. To me, it's much richer territory. If you turn on any television show, or for that matter, film these days, 9 out of 10 of them seem to open with a naked, tied-up, dead woman with her undies around her ankles. She's been calling them NTSDs, which stands for naked, tied up, dead. They've just become so ubiquitous, it's like numbing the audience to what is a horrific violation. A news editor at The Verge, Kwame Opam, identified why Jessica Jones's depictions of rape and rapists is so revolutionary. Opam pointed out that it's easy to identify the monstrous, predatory rapists and then to depict them on TV. But when schools are coming out and creating consent classes because the topic is so poorly understood, the problem becomes all the more horrifying, not in spite of, but because of its mundanity. Men needn't be evil or superhuman in order to use their power to take advantage of women. They just have to live in a society that allows for it. End quote. So whether we look at shows like Game of Thrones or gang rape on Sons of Anarchy or films like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, when watching rape, we consume it by entering the gaze of the rapist, which is usually a cisgender, heterosexual man and generally white because that's all we get on screen anyways. My observation as a survivor is that it's generally portrayed as an isolated event, like I've mentioned, in the same way, for example, a car accident would be, with little to no mention of after the fact once a little bit of time has passed. When in reality, it functions more as an ongoing challenge, and I recognize the value in centering its phenomenology around the survivors. So now I briefly want to define the parameters of my use of the word rape in the following sentence, and before I got into this. I'm assigning the term rape to the violent act of unconsented intercourse or penetrative sex, and I'm using these parameters to say that as a show about rape, what Jessica Jones does best is that we never see rape.